Hello students. So till now we have learned acetazolamide, furosemide and thiazide. So these are the three diuretics which work on PCT, proximal convoluted tubule, ascending limb of loop of Henle and distal convoluted tubule respectively. While learning furosemide and thiazide, you must have come to know now that we will be able to compare them on some basis. Okay. So first, can you recall what is the effect on calcium reabsorption of furosemide and thiazide? Which is calcium wasting and which is calcium sparing? So try to recall that furosemide is calcium wasting because it was enhancing excretion of calcium, whereas thiazide is calcium sparing diuretic. So what is the mechanism of action of furosemide? So you have to recall the previous video wherein furosemide inhibits sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter present at the luminal site. Okay, if you remember this diagram, this particular transporter present at the luminal site of ascending limb of loop of Henle. What about thiazide? It also acts on the luminal site but of distal convoluted tubule and it inhibits sodium chloride symporter. Okay, so that is the major mechanism of action difference. And then site of action, I have been continuously saying one acts on the ascending limb of loop of Henle and other acts on the distal convoluted tubule. What is the intensity of action? Can you recall which is mild and which is strong? Furosemide is a strong diuretic, whereas thiazide is a mild diuretic. Why so? Are you able to recall it, students? Because furosemide, what it does, it acts, now you have to join the dots. Remember, try to recall the mechanism and site of action. When I talk about site of action, furosemide acts on the ascending limb of loop of Henle, where sodium reabsorption occurs in 2 digits, that is 25% or so, right? So if I inhibit sodium reabsorption there, lot of sodium is going to get trapped in the lumen and then not much of it will be reabsorbed in the latter part of the nephron and it will be excreted out. But when I talk about thiazide, it acts on the part of the lumen where lot of thiazides, their intensity of action is mild because they are acting at a portion where only 2 to 5% of the sodium is reabsorbed. So if you are able to save sodium, how much we will be saving? 2 to 5%. And plus we are going to discuss one consequence where sodium, still some amount of sodium, not much, but is reabsorbed. Okay. So basically thiazides are mild diuretics. Now about the side effects. Okay. So all of us know now furosemide has a side effect, that is osteoporosis. Why? Because it is calcium wasting. So it leads to calcium depletion from the body. So it can lead to osteoporosis. Both of these drugs show hyperuricemia as a side effect. So that is increased amount of uric acid in blood. So why so? Both these drugs are actively secreted in proximal convoluted tubule. What do you understand by that? Both these drugs do not enter much from filtration pathway in the nephron, but they enter via proximal convoluted tubule. They are actively secreted there, okay, with the help of transporters. Now, uric acid, which is inherently present in your blood, which is a big molecule again, and which is again not getting filtered, has to be secreted in the nephron. So this uric acid takes same transporters, okay. So what happens? These two drugs, when they are present, they compete with uric acid for entry into nephron, luminal tube. So what will happen as a consequence? Drugs enter the lumen, but uric acid does not. And because uric acid does not enter the lumen, it will be retained in the blood and both of them show hyperuricemia as a side effect. Both these drugs have drug-drug interaction with NSAIDs because they require PGs, okay, prostaglandins, for their action. Okay. So again, there is a drug-drug interaction with NSAIDs. So this is a comparison between furosemide and thiazide, which you should remember. Okay. Now, Till now, whatever we have discussed, that is acetazolamide, furosemide, and thiazide. All these three are called as potassium wasting diuretics. Now, why these are called as potassium wasting diuretics? So, do you remember I had mentioned principal cells? Where I had mentioned them? I will show you. Here, while we were discussing thiazide, we said increased potassium and chloride excretion, but sodium is exchanged with potassium at principal cells. So you need to remember, principal cells are involved in sodium and potassium exchange. Okay. So when I say that, they are taking sodium from lumen, allowing it to reabsorb back and allowing potassium to enter in the lumen. Okay. So how does this happen? So again, at the principal cell, you have sodium ion channels, which are electrogenic in nature. Okay, more sodium present here, more will enter inside the cell. You have potassium ion channels, more potassium present in the cell, more potassium will enter in the lumen. So understand the fate. Sodium will not be excreted. Potassium, because it is coming in the lumen, it will be excreted, wasted from the body. This is luminal side, this is basolateral side. Another transporter which is present and which now very familiar to us, that is sodium potassium ATPase, which allows 3 sodium to go out, 2 potassium to come in. So this is what happens at the principal cell. Okay. So as a consequence, what will happen? So under the influence of any of the 3 diuretics, what is going to happen? More and more sodium will reach to the collecting tubule. Principal cells are present at the collecting tubule. Okay. So more and more sodium leaves the lumen here. See what has happened now. If only 2 molecules come, 1 molecule will enter. This is a very crude example. Only 2 molecules come, 1 molecule enter in the cell, 1 molecule may be excreted out. 5 molecules come, the rate of entry will increase, right? So what will happen? More the sodium enters in, more the potassium is exchanged. So more and more sodium leaves the lumen and enter the cell. In exchange, more and more potassium will enter the lumen. And more sodium. So this is first thing. Second thing, more and more sodium when leaves the cell. Sodium carries positive charge. So here it will become negative or less positive, more precisely. Because it is less positive, more and more potassium is, because it is again positively charged, attracted in the lumen. And because of that, again, more and more sodium will be leaving the lumen, excreted out. With thiazide and furosemide, what happens? Chloride is also coming. Do you remember what they are inhibiting? They are inhibiting transporters which involve sodium and chloride transport. So they are not only increasing sodium excretion, but they are causing more and more chloride to reach here in this region. Chloride carries negative charge. Because chloride carries negative charge, what is going to happen? Again, this become more negative. This become more negative. More and more potassium enters. Right? So because of, all these reasons, what is going to happen? With thiazide and furosemide, more chloride reaches collecting tube, more negativity at the luminal side, more potassium is attracted in the lumen. All these three lead to more and more potassium excretion, and these three are termed as potassium wasting diuretics. And potassium plays a very important role in our body. Okay, you need to read about it, and then you will come to know, okay, we are having diuresis is good, natriuresis is good, but wasting potassium in this process can be injurious to patient's health. So the hunt for potassium sparing diuretic was on, and then we have a class of potassium sparing diuretic which we will be discussing in the next lecture.